Thank you for joining us for a review of CloudRadial's June product updates. I'm Seth Wilson, Marketing Director here at CloudRadial, and joining me is CEO Jeff Ferris. We've got some fun stuff to review today, including updates to compliance policies and warranty expiration reporting. Feel free to submit questions, and I'll toss those to Jeff when I can. Just to make everyone aware, because I see a decent chunk of you haven't signed up with us yet, our current introductory pricing offer is about to go away forever. So if you're planning on onboarding CloudRadial and just weren't sure when the right time was, the answer is June 20, 2020. Also, we have another webinar on June 25th on delivering the perfect QBR, Roman numeral 2. We're going to review processes and methods and do some role playing and show you how to use CloudRadial to repair a QBR in little to no time at all. And I'm going to toss it over to Jeff to go over our product updates for June.
Hey, Seth, thanks. Hey, the webinar too that's coming up in a couple of weeks, if you caught part of the first one or any part of the first one, I think this is going to be a really valuable lesson to go back and see how to apply it. We ran out of time in that first webinar to go through the actual how-to, and Ricky is going to go through, I think, a lot more of that detail to give you more of an update on kind of the practicality of sitting down with the client and including some role play. So if you didn't catch the first session, go back. It's on our YouTube channel at radials.io/YouTube. And you can catch that first presentation, but I think the second one for many of you may be actually much more valuable. One, because it's Ricky talking instead of me. So today we're going to talk about some product updates. And this is one of those things where marketing and development sometimes aren't always on the same page. So we've got, we've got these webinars at fixed dates. Sometimes development has a life of its own, so we're running just a little behind on things, but it's all good because we know how to address this, right? When there's something that's not quite ready in the product, it just goes into future development. So that's what we're going to find today. So a lot of stuff we're going to talk about in the webinar today is there. It's set up. But there'll be another email within a couple of weeks that has more details in it and some more fine tuning of what I'm going to show you today. So know that this is the introduction of it, and there's still just a few more details that we want to go get in just to feel like we've put this to bed at least for a while. So the highlights for June, we've spent the last month really just retooling the whole product. We are based on the .NET framework. Not that that's interesting, but that's gone through a lot of changes. So we've actually upgraded all the technology, and the results are that the product across the board is now smaller. It's a smaller download package in the browser, and it's noticeably faster in some areas, especially in search. And this is based primarily on improvements in the frameworks that we use, and you should see that. The only downside to the product being faster is it's starting to showcase some of the problems we have that are, when we go to access ConnectWise or AutoTask or some of the PSA information, you can see the product grind a little bit longer because it's having to go out and access the data in real time. And when the product was a little slower, then the noticeable difference wasn't quite there as much. But now that the product's peppier, now the challenge is especially with AutoTask, it seems just a little slower. So we've got some things in the works that maybe we'll address that over the next 60 days. So hang on, but the whole goal is to make it faster. One of the things we're going to cover, and we get into the product portion, is we've updated the agent to 117, and so you'll start seeing those upgrades started to go out. They actually started to go out last night. So you'll be able to see new agents deploying out to your workstations. The big change in this one primarily is related to HP warranty information. We needed a few more pieces of data off that agent in order to gather the HP warranty information. So with that, the agent collects it. We're now processing it, and you should start seeing, especially if you have HP information in there, you'll now see that. So now that completes the Dell, Lenovo, and HP warranty setup. So the agent can collect data for all three of those, and we'll still pull it from ConnectWise or AutoTask if that config is already there. But if it's not there, we're not there. So we're no longer typically, unless you've got a lot of brands that are not of the big three, then that's going to eliminate the need for Warranty Master for at least reporting those workstations, because we're going to pull in the ship date and we're going to pull in that warranty information for all those brands. We've also added support. We've tweaked the core status bar. We've added a core status bar. I'll show you that. The big thing there is primarily related to, now that Bigger Brains has 100+ courses, it's kind of hard to tell sometimes what you're doing. And then we're going to spend a little more time on policies today. But I think before we go into it, because I think whether we get directly into the how policies work and get into the details of it, I want to go into a little more depth about why policies to us are the killer feature of CloudRadial. And one of the things that policies are, we've noticed that from an implementation standpoint, policies tend to be one of the last things that our partners dial in the product. So, typically it always starts with ticketing, maybe it starts with QBRs, and then as time permits, policies get dialed in later, when really we think that policies are maybe one of those key features. It's worth spending time early on, because policies tend to drive a lot of the value of CloudRadial. And once you get into policies, you're going to find that it's a huge game changer in how much time you spend in preparing for QBRs, or how much time you spend in the ways you engage with clients. So one of the things that, again, about policies, they are fully automated. So we've had a lot of requests for policy additions, for being able to add your own policies to this list. And we're going to address that later on this year in something we call assessments. So we are going to provide support for manual policy reviews. But the policy section in CloudRadial, the way it exists today, is a fully automated approach to policies. And so what the goal of policies is to really get rid of the QBRs. If you watch the last presentation, we'd like to reduce a lot of those QBR information, because we're going to turn that business review from a quarterly or an annual or an occasional process into a daily process. And so what we want to be able to do is use policies to turn the data into decisions, because again, what we want is the client to be able to kind of see things for themselves, see what's going on, and do what we consider the business policies. And if we've talked before, then you probably heard me use the analogy of OneDrive and deploying OneDrive. Deploying OneDrive is great. It's an IT policy. Every machine should have it. In fact, by default now, Microsoft just puts it on every machine. But whether they use it or not, whether they actually store their data in OneDrive, becomes oftentimes a business policy. So if users don't map their drives to OneDrive, if they don't protect their documents folder, if they don't store data in it, then it's not really protecting anything, and the data is not really cloud backed up, but the potential was there. So, but that's a business policy, and sometimes it's very hard to control what users do with their equipment, even what equipment they have. And so what we want to do in the policies is focus on the things that the client needs to know to make them a better IT owner or participant. So you'll see a lot of stuff in the policies that are related to business policies and educational perspective, because what we want to do is make sure clients understand what they can do to change their own behaviors that's going to impact them in a positive way. The other thing that policies can do, especially if you use the time to highlight in your clients, is they can be conversation starters, right? So again, we've added a new screen in there to really focus on the red, green, orange type structure to highlight errors and warnings and things that are in good shape, because we want the client coming to you with the questions about what they should do and how they get the red out, right? How they get the orange out. And so what we're going to do with policies is use those as tools so that as you deploy them, and even if you're not talking to your clients on a quarterly or monthly basis, we'd still like for the clients to be able to initiate that conversation with you. So, and again, that no QBR is going to work better, or no customer review is going to work better than if it's client initiated. The other thing we're going to do with the policies is every policy is backed up by a reason, right? So every policy you're going to see is tied into what we call evidence-based selling. So I think that's a key driver, is that, again, rather than telling people their equipment's old. We want them just to discover that for themselves and understand how that works. And then lastly, with policies, everything's grouped together in the sample policies, but that doesn't mean you have to deploy it that way. So if you, for OneDrive, for example, and some of the factors associated with that, you can roll that out and basically market around data governance as a service. So again, you can use these tools to help enhance your own offering or develop new offerings that you can take to clients. So again, you can start selling and upselling other services beyond just the managed services you do now. And data governance and the control of that data, especially with all the other things that Microsoft provides for data governance, can be huge. And then lastly, policies help document compliance. And compliance is good IT that's well documented. And so again, we also could see using the policies and even the reporting archives that are there now to do compliance documentation as a service or compliance as a service, because again, there are nice ways to upsell off of this. So one more thing before we get in there, because again, this is buried down in the product, and I think a lot of times it gets lost in the shuffle because again, it's certainly lost in our UI. We don't do a very good job of bringing that surface and bringing this to the surface. But basically, inside of the policies, what we want to do is set up a hierarchy of needs, right? We want to set up policies in a context, because for clients, if you give them 50 things to focus on, it's going to fall apart really quickly because there's too many things to focus on. And so what we want to do is we want to focus clients on the core objectives of what you're trying to accomplish. And then from policies, we're going to be able to validate what you do and then also be able to set the stage for collaboration, because policies can be, if you allow it, can be set up by the users themselves. So to understand this hierarchy and what we do it, and this is, there's a famous chart. This called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and what it is basically is the way people kind of reach the pinnacle of their life. And basically the idea of the hierarchy is that you can only reach the top of the hierarchy if the lower levels are satisfied. So if you don't have food or shelter, you're really not going to worry about your makeup or your hair or whether you're going bald or not. You're going to be focused on the lower level things, right? So the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is really a way to focus attention on the lower levels, because again, you have to fulfill those to get the higher level. In the IT world, we see this as an IT hierarchy of needs. And so basically the pattern that we have in CloudRadial, and I'll show you where this is at, but basically it starts with efficiency at the lower end and then moves through decision-making at the top. And from a sales perspective, it's better to be at the decision-making side and then the efficiency side. Efficiency typically is a 10, cost plus 10 type margin situation. So again, we want a PC, we want it cheap, and we want it fast. That's margin. That's a cost plus 10. We need to have collaboration. We need to have productivity. With the average white collar salary in the United States being $5,000 and up, when you're talking about somebody's ability to be productive, to be collaborative, and actually make good decisions in their business, the value, the margin of those services is much higher. So the higher up you move an item from efficiency to decision making, the more the client's going to value it, and the more margin, the more value you can derive from it as a partner. So with policies, we're going to pull in all of the core inputs. Policies are basically tucked into everything that CloudRadial does. And so they're going to pull from their content, they're going to pull in from infrastructure and users, and we're going to feed that back in almost every area of the product. And so we want to be able to, on policies, as we dial this in, we're basically going to be connecting, again, that critical step for the client, for them to be able to see the big picture of what you're doing. So what I want to do now is switch into the product itself and go through some of these details in a little more detail. Before we get into policies, I want to touch real quickly on the agent. because again, with the 117 agent that's out there, it should auto deploy, it should self-update, but also have seen in a few clients that there are older agents, and we did have an issue before, I believe it's before agent 1.15, where the self-update feature was sporadic or not at all. And so what I want to do is show you where to find that out. So under Partner and Reports, there's a tab up here called Endpoints and Servers. And this Endpoints and Servers is like a global list of all of your machines. And so you're going to see across all of your clients, kind of a quick look. There's a good download button up here, which will show you, we'll actually bring this down into a complete list if you want to pull this into Power BI or Bright Gauge or something else. But basically, this is a great way to get access to that information. But you're also going to see here the agent column. And the agent column right now should be reading 117, right? So we know this is demo data. So it's, as you can tell, it's been around for a long time. But you can click on the agent link up here and you can reverse sort and see what the current agents are in that list. So everything in this list now should be either 116 or 117. If it's 116, the next time that machine powers on, it should pick up the new update. If it's not showing this version up here, then you will need to go back into the way you deployed it, typically through your RMN, and re-push out the current agent. And so the current agents that are there now and provisioned in your tenant will work just fine. So just take that agent and redeploy it out to make sure that all of your agents are at the 115, really should be at 117 or higher. And there were some nice updates in the later releases as well, dealing with administrative security, and it does pull in a little more data. So again, as you update that agent, you're going to find that that's a much better experience and much more information. So with that out of the way, again, this is under Partner Reports, Endpoints and Servers. So again, go to there, make sure your agents are up to date, and then please correct the ones that need correcting. The other thing, now let's get into policies a little bit. One of the changes we've made in the product is we've added this policies page. And so what we're going to do now with clients is that first come into a more hopefully it's a little more informative display just to get their attention. We may still tweak this over the next couple of weeks, and we're getting some good feedback from partners already as we've shown this out. But the goal here is basically to replace, not to replace, but to complement what we already have. And so as you present this to a client, if you click on one of these, it's going to show you on the right-hand side the policies that it found as exceptions. And like before, you can click on one of these policies and see the machines that are violating that policy. So based on the old technology policy, what we're going to have here is the machines, and then I can click on these machines and drill down into the machine itself and get all of the information about it. So from a client perspective, what we're doing is we're showing them exactly where they stand on things, and we're showing them the reasons why that's red, and then the machines that are affected by that. Now, this is the graphical view of policies. We've also got a by category view, and this is where we're going to get into the decision-making, productivity, that IT hierarchy of needs. And what we've tried to do in the sample policies that are out there is we always want to try to push these issues into the highest level that makes sense from a client perspective. So modern disk storage, which is what I think it's a sample policy for SSDs and not having SSDs in the machine. We're going to push that into the productivity side, even though technically it may be an efficiency issue or something that we know it just improves performance. But if it improves performance, that means it's also going to improve a client's productivity, because they're going to have to wait less while they're waiting on the machine to do useful things. So we want to push that policy up as high level as possible so that we can basically present it as a client as something that's actually going to be very helpful to them, whether that's modern technology, old technology, slow performance. If you notice here, all these things can affect a person's or a client's wallet, because again, if their people are getting work done slower because of old or outdated or slow equipment, this is a big deal. We actually have pushed cloud storage search as one of the policies up into the decision-making area. primarily because we see this as a data governance issue. And again, you can't have good decision making without good data governance, right? So again, all of this stuff, as you look through the policies from a client perspective, all of these policies are here. There's a risk score. I'm going to show you here in just a second how that's calculated. And then you've also got this report by asset class as well. So from a policy perspective, we've now broken this data into multiple different categories. We summarized it in a graphical way, and all of this stuff is updated every single night. So anything that you've got in that tenant will be updated nightly. If you need to sync real time, then just press the sync button up here and give it about 5 or 10 minutes to respond back or to run that scan. But then the sync will come back and update all of this with all the current things. So if you've added a new endpoint and you're wondering why it's not showing here, or when you see something here that's showing up as an error, they hit the sync button and just make sure you've got the current copy of things before you start investigating. So that's the policy piece. And from a client perspective, from a client-facing perspective, this is a pretty powerful way to, again, to summarize a lot of work that you're doing for them in a way that hopefully they can understand more effectively. And then you can always generate a report and a client, remember too, can add their own policy. So once is another thing to think about too, from a business perspective. If we know, for example, maybe Spotify, the app is not maybe an IT threat, but the client may view that as a threat to productivity, or maybe they just don't want Spotify on those machines, then they're going to be able to add their own policies here and basically take in effect all of the things that they can track for Spotify themselves if they want to track that, or you can add it for a one-off for the client and do it this way. Inside this policy review, and this is a good time maybe now to bring this up, when you get into the policy review or when you're adding a policy, you notice we have the 5 different types. Now there's kind of a constant stream of updates to this, and again, I think there'll be more over the next couple of weeks. But basically, these are the predefined apps, and they're predefined so that, again, we can automate the thinking behind this, or the analysis of this behind the product. So if I choose endpoint, for example, these are going to be the predefined policies that are behind there. So here's all the things. If you're looking for modern disk storage, that's the SSD. Now, how you present that to the client is up to you. So you can change this name, you can change the description, and you can also put in place a recommendation. So again, if you're dealing with your client more randomly, or you're doing it on a self-serve basis with your clients, then basically you can do the analysis, describe what the problem is, and give them a recommendation on how to do this. The testing is based on the percentage required, so you can allow some slippage in here. So again, maybe you can allow 10% in there. Typically, this is almost always going to be 100. And again, it doesn't really become good exception reporting unless it's 100% compliant. Now that we support Macs through the Adage integration, you now can check the OS level as well, so you can make sure that certain policies maybe apply only to Macs and not to Windows machines. The alerting piece comes into when an error occurs. You not only can flag it here for the client, but you can actually send a notice of this to yourself through the ConnectWise routing, through AutoTask routing, through email routing. So again, if there's an issue with this, you can have this flag you either the first time it occurs, in which case it goes to an error state and then stays in that error state until it's resolved, or you can just have it send an alert anytime anytime it does the scan. And then lastly, this is where you get into the scoring methodology. So the risk scoring is where it's going to show up in the hierarchy. And so these are based on the planner categories, which I'll show you here in just a second. So here's the category items. Here's the risk score, and this is, in this case, it's going to be it's 10 points are going to be deducted from each occurrence of that. And this would be a typical scoring method. You can also set it as any occurrence, but the risk scores, the way that works is any score over 100 will trigger the red in the box. Any score between 1 and 100 will trigger an orange, and only a 0 will trigger a green. So the way you can weight this, and again, you can do this by client, is certain items, if you know for a fact that they're a medical company and disk encryption is critical, then basically you can set this risk score to 100. And so any occurrence of that risk score will flag this as red, because when you set this to 100, effectively what you're doing is setting that policy to trigger a red alert anytime that occurs. If you change this to a 10, for example, then basically there would take 10 occurrences of this to trigger 100 and then trigger the red in the box. So again, you can control how you weight this to clients and how you score it based on either your own perception of the problem, based on their industry, or based on the way that you want it to present to clients. So as you add these policies, again, they're gonna filter out by the category. Now, a couple of things go into this, and that goes into that category setting. So if you go back under partner and settings, and over here on the right-hand side is planner categories. And so the planner categories are what's used in the planner, the VCAO planner tool that we have, and and then also in the categories for the policies themselves. Now, each of these policies is visible to the client somewhere, and then we're going to do a better job of providing this. But this description inside of the planner categories is designed to be client-facing and help them understand how they need to move up the chain, right? So if you think about it, if they want collaboration, all of the other areas below need to be addressed, as we talked about earlier. And so what we want to do is make sure that they've addressed efficiency on up. So everything is in a sense critical. But again, these things are super critical because it's just like in Maslow's hierarchy. If you don't have food or shelter, you're not going to get to really where you want to be. And so what you want to do in the IT world is basically show clients how they can navigate up this hierarchy and achieve productivity, collaboration, decision-making only if they deal with these other issues first. They're not necessarily the most glamorous. They're not necessarily what clients got in business for, to spend money on these things. But if they don't do those right, they won't get to this level. And all of the verbiage here for these is designed to help sell the concept of the stack and sell the concept that they need to move up the stack. So again, you know, we're going to stay pretty close to these categories. We don't necessarily recommend changing the categories, but we do want to hear your feedback. If you've got any good suggestions on the ways we can make this better, we'd like to know it. But again, we think these categories work pretty well, not necessarily from a technical standpoint, but from a client-facing, client sales strategy standpoint, and that's why they're there. So from a policy standpoint, this is here. Now I want to show a couple of ways that this gets pulled together. So if we have the compliance and the policy section here, once we have this information here, we have it accumulated. It's also going to show up in the dashboards as well. And there's several good charts here. In fact, all of these typically are going to come from the scanning, but there's a good exceptions list here that's going to summarize everything related to that. And as you pull in, like in the risk report, you can actually pull specific encryption alerts. So again, this will come directly from those policies. And then if I need to drill down on any of this, I can always click the button there and go right to the policies to see where that's affected. This is going to let me drill in and see which machines are affected by that or which applications. And then from there, you know, be able to navigate to a solution. So everything should be cross-linking in the product. And again, everything flows back to the planner. So if you want to flag it for your discussion items, you can certainly do that. The other place that policies will show up is back here, and this is sometimes it gets overlooked quite a bit, is back here under the report layouts. And this is still in preview, and there's still a lot of work to do here. But the report layouts basically are your way to organize a PDF report to your clients of the things that you've identified for them. So basically, when you add a report layout, you're going to choose the sections of the report that you want to present. And you can even include the category stuff, that product literature that we talked about, the actual product names themselves that would come from the planner. But when you run these reports, to do that, you're going to go under clients, and pull up the client that you want to run the report for, and then click the reports button, and then choose the report that you want to run. Now, when you do that, it's going to generate a PDF that's going to pull together the information. You've got to give it a few seconds as it goes back and generates the PDF file and prepares it for download. Once that's available, though, now you've basically got a PDF that you can deliver to the client. to present back to them. Now, it's going to use the image from your login page. It's going to use your logo. So all of that you've already predefined should pull into the account here. And then as you get into it, you're going to see the account plan for the clients. You're also going to see a summary, just like you did on the policies page now, that account review. And then once you get through the account plan, you're going to see the policies themselves. So you get along with a lot more information. So it's going to pull together in this PDF package all the information that you want to present to the client, either as a leave behind or maybe just as a way to document where they stand today. This is a very strong way to do that. One last thing I want to show you before we get into the Q&A portion is if you get into underneath clients, if you go underneath the client themselves and edit the client. Now, as you come in here, again, as you set up the client, this add-ons tab right here is where you configure the other integrations. And one of the things that we put in, not necessarily the most well thought out thing we have, but it's here, and it's here for a reason, is the policy report email. So what you can do here is specify a report archive address. And so with report archives, that gives you a place to document what you're doing. And if you put one of those report archive email addresses in here, or any email address, it's going to send a report on this client, this policy report, every single day to that email address. And where this becomes valuable is on the compliance as a service type functionality. So if I'm documenting the policy report every single day, that means I'm providing that baseline and that list of known issues every single day for the client, and I'm documenting their compliance history. And so again, if you do this every single day, it's going to fill up, over time, these report archives, which are down here under compliance reports. As you fill up these report archives with those reports, the important thing is now you've documented the setup for the clients, and you document it every day. And then for clients that are in financial or medical, even in some cases that are, if they need documentation for GPD or GDPR purposes or other documentation services, you're going to find this is an easy way to kind of check that box to provide them a daily report of where they stand. So, so policies, again, we've come a long way in the product. I think this is one of the critical steps of the whole product to date. Inside, we've got some good information. Ricky Cicchini has done a great job putting together this policy parameters document. And so there's a lot of details there. In fact, let me see if I can bring that up. I think I had that. Yeah, so that policy detail parameters document is going to go through each policy, talk about what's there, provide a little more description, and then talk about the parameters that make up those policies. So if you want to, if you want to check for current OS version, free disk space, there's a lot of good information here as to how to do that or how to configure it for your own purposes. I think the default comes with WebRoot, and so that's, if you've got something else, this is usually the first thing that gets changed. So again, you can change all of these as you need, and you can also, again, since they're content and they can deployed by client or client group, you can tweak the policies and deploy them. And again, if the policies are in multiple packages, they'll be deployed and grouped together for one client. So lots of good information there. And then the policy video to help you just understand how to work it all together. So that's going to cover most of policies and the reporting pieces. If you don't have the product already, again, sign up for a trial. If you've got questions on policies, or anything that I've covered in this webinar, you can either stick around for the Q&A that's coming up right after this, or just send us an email to support@cloudradial.com, and we'll be happy to address your questions. So with that, we'll go back to Seth and see if we have any questions.
Yeah, we got a few things here. Our friend Drew from Polaris helpfully pointed out that on your hierarchy of needs, there was no coffee. And yeah, I mean, it does kind of invalidate it, doesn't it? So we'll have to go back and work on that.
very, very low level hierarchy. That's that food, shelter, that food is, air, coffee, that's all part of the same stuff. So
understood.
But yeah, I think you're right. I think that should be a separate item. So
Craig asked, what agent version was it that it started auto updating?
It should have started auto updating at 115.
Okay.
But again, there are some times when the agent itself, maybe it gets wedged or has problems updating itself. I have seen issues, especially with servers, where maybe a firewall or maybe an AV system will prevent it from updating. So you just have to kind of check that log, and most of them will auto update. I'd say 95% will auto update, but there are always a few strays in the bunch that don't quite make it.
Okay. Let's see. Brian asked if we could just quickly review where that RMM agent download is located in the new version.
So the RMM, if you go under partner, and hopefully the screen's up here now. So if you go to partner and clients, there is up at the top here, there's an agents tab. And so this is going to give you the roundup of all of the agents. So this is going to show you the unique agent for each client. But you can also go to the clients themselves, and you can pull up the agent link there. And the other thing that's important here is this document right here, and this gets overlooked. I don't know why it's so small, but basically this link right here is the information you're going to need to deploy the client through the RMM. Now, one of the things that is a bit frustrating, I know for the partners I've talked to, we're not very good and not very smart about the RMM tools that are out there. We're doing a good job just to be smart about CloudRadial. And so when it gets to, Automate or SolarWinds or Ninja, we really don't know how they work. And so we're really hoping that if you've got any good ideas, we put a lot of good stuff in the community. In fact, if you go to community.cloudradial, if you haven't joined already, this is a great place to share information. But down here underneath the CloudRadial community is the agent information on how to different scripts that our partners have contributed. So please either contribute here or add your comments to here, because again, I think this is going to be the critical way to fill that void, because again, we don't have that expertise. But if you've done it before, then if you want to share that, we really encourage and appreciate what you do there. So again, from a client perspective, all the links are with the clients. They're all client specific, unless you use the techniques here in this document to basically, you can use one agent for all clients using a variable that you would set in your RMM tool. So hopefully that answers that question. It's a couple of different places, but the agent thing. The other thing I might want to point out too, if you haven't done it already, is underneath agent, there's a settings option. And underneath the agent settings option is this option to retain disconnected endpoints. Typically, this should be 30. And so basically, if we haven't heard for that server or endpoint in 30 days, then we'll just drop it out of the system. So if you'll set that, that will also keep, if machines get sent in for repair and they don't come back out, then this is a way to just take those off the list automatically if you want. So.
Well, I got quite a few questions coming in here. A couple feature requests that we'll make sure we get in there, but I just kind of stick to I think the questions that we can answer. Brian also asked about scheduling automatic reports, specifically looking to have reports of endpoint servers / users to get sent to a reports folder on a monthly basis for billing audits, reference, things like that.
Yeah, that's coming. And again, we say that a lot, but it's coming. And so right now, the only thing we can do is that policy report on a daily basis. But there is a goal to take that as we beef up that reporting archive or that reporting PDF package to automate that on a regular basis, so you can distribute that like you do with your your PSA reports and similar. So we'd like that same functionality to be able to write the right reports to the right users or the right admins on a regular basis. So that is coming. We just don't have that. I just can't give you an ETA on that, but it'll be this year.
Cool. Got a couple people asking about Microsoft surface warranty information. Is that even something possible? Like, is there an API available for that yet?
I believe there is. We don't have that yet, and we haven't seen how to do it. Again, if you have the code, send it to us. That actually was really helpful on some of the HP warranty stuff to track down an API that works, because the official line from HP was that you can't do that. So again, if you've found a piece of script somewhere that pulls up a surface warranty, we'd love to have it, and we'll try to build that in there. We'd like to build in some more for other warranty pieces, where we can find the techniques on how to do that. So if you've got it, send it, and we'll build it in.
Cool. Mark asked about, is there any way to change the date range in the planner? He was looking to display up to 3 years.
That's all that's on the feature list. Now, one of the things that if you go here in your planner or in your account, you're going to see over on the right hand side the access feature request. And this is one of the best things we've ever done or the worst, I'm not sure which. But as you go into the feature request, and you have to access the feature request from there, and you've got to be a paid member, because what we're doing here is we're trying to catalog everything. And I think now it's up to 500 feature suggestions, which is great, because actually we spend a lot of time going through these. We may not respond to all of them, but we do spend a lot of time going through them to try to figure out what we're going to do, how we're going to prioritize things. And so back here on the popular tab, this is a place to kind of, you can see kind of what's being put up there. We know projects is a high priority, and so that's coming sooner rather than later. But basically, this is your chance to go in through here, either make suggestions and vote up other suggestions. And so as you do this, you're going to find a chance to kind of contribute and, again, guide how we work. So again, there are things that we work on that sometimes we just have to, like this recent upgrade in technology to get us prepared for the next round of upgrades. But basically, be sure and use this. We rely on this, and so again, if anybody that has a feature request to date for the product, be sure and come in here, search it. If you don't find it, add it. If it already exists, we'll merge it in with the right item. But be sure and get it listed here, because basically, if it doesn't live here, then we may not remember. So if you send it to us via email or through online chat or whatever it is, there's not a 100% chance it'll make this list. If you put it in the list, then there's a 100% chance it makes it. So use this, it's there. And again, we rely on it to figure out where we're going next with the product.
Alrighty, Drew also mentioned, just because we had a couple different questions about RMM deployment and things like that. He did mention that he's got wrote a couple of his own scripts and EDFs, and you can find those at MSP Geek. Seems to be a pretty active CloudRadial community there. So definitely something to check out if you're curious about some of those deployments. Jeff,
of course. So.
Yeah, Jeff asks, do you have directions on how to deploy the agent via Intune?
Yes, actually we do. So I think that is, I don't know if it got moved over to, let's go back to the community. Yeah, so underneath the community here is an option for Intune. And there is information here on how to deploy. Oops, that's the category. Go back. So here's the information on here's a script to deploy. Now this is done a year ago, so it's potential that Intune has changed since then, but there is a way to deploy the agent through Intune. It works just fine.
Cool. Craig had a question about the agent timeout feature that you were showing, like after 30 days it gets removed. He asked that if the machine does reappear after that 30 days, is it re-added or is it removed permanently?
Basically, we just hide it. And so if it appears again, we'll just pick up where we left off. But mainly it gets it out of your account, because again, we'll use, potentially you can be, this could drive your billing. So the endpoints, we'll just drop them off for 30 days. If they show back up, we'll still have all their history, and we'll pick them back up, assuming that, it still has the same serial number and parameters as it had before it left. So as long as it matches with what we had, it should reappear back in the dashboard.
As long as the motherboard wasn't replaced or something like that.
Right.
All right. So someone, John asked about a CloudRadial API for partners to populate some of their metrics with customer third-party tools.
Yes, we have that API under development, and so I don't know when that's going to be announced. Again, it's a this year type of thing, but we very much like to provide the ability to get data out of CloudRadial and get data into CloudRadial via the API. So it is something we're working on. It's something we have in prototype, but we're not ready to show it yet. So
cool. Scott might have had some insight for the Microsoft warranty information. We'll have to look at that. So there's a way to get around the CAPTCHA, which would be nice.
Awesome.
And I was just getting some here. Sorry, slow reader. Is report layout available as content so they can be set up per group?
No, the report layouts are basically by package type.
Yeah.
So, and then the goal, we still are going to make those public facing at some point. So again, you'll be able to find packages that your clients will be able to run directly themselves. So again, we'd like to be able to make that, again, it's just all the same data, just massaged and refactored in different ways. And again, it's through some of that stuff that I think makes it, more valuable. If you can see it in different ways, then you can understand it in better ways.
And Craig, who's had some good questions here, ask a different question about so there's a nice idea to ditch Warranty Master. Can CloudRadial write the warranty data back to ConnectWise?
No, but I'm hearing that. It's funny, every time we do something, we always get more requests after that. And so if that we can write information back to configs as it is now. And so warranty information, since we weren't very strong on that, we didn't write that piece of data back, but we would be able to do that as well. We need to make sure we've got a feature request for that so we don't forget it. Yep. But that's something that should be fairly trivial to do. We just need to type it. So I think that's a great idea. And now that we have this missing piece with HP and ship dates, that's something we can certainly add back to the product.
All right. Okay, so I think this is a pretty good stopping point. If there are a couple things we didn't get to as far as like feature requests, make sure you go submit those. And if there was a question we didn't missed there, certainly contact support at cloudradial.com. We're happy to get to those. Just a quick reminder, we do have our webinar on delivering the perfect QBR Part 2 coming up in 2 weeks. You can sign up for that at cloudradial.com/events. And again, tell your neighbor, tell your one friend, our sale is about to end. So June 20th, if you want to take advantage of that discount, that is ending June 20th. So thank you guys very much for joining us, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Thanks very much, guys. Stay safe.